So yesterday, the Joint Committee on Administrative Rules, that is a bipartisan, bicameral group at the Illinois State House of 12 lawmakers, evenly split between Republicans and Democrats. So it's truly bipartisan. And they voted to block Governor J.B. Pritzker's mask mandates that he filed on Monday, despite a Sangamon County judge declaring the governor's mask mandate for schools null and void. And this also deals with exclusion policies. So schools cannot have a policy of excluding a student for merely being a so-called close contact. It is the WMAY morning news feed. I'm Greg Bishop at 623. And yesterday was quite eventful with that committee hearing. Again, it's a bipartisan committee of senators, representatives, equal representation from Democrats and Republicans. And ultimately, what they determined through a 9-0 vote, two members voted present, Senator Bill Cunningham and Senator Tony Munoz, both Democrats from Chicago. State Senator Kimberly Lightford was not in the committee, so she's not recorded as voting. But you had a bipartisan vote to block Governor J.B. Pritzker's COVID-19 mask and exclusion policies for schools. So a lot of people don't necessarily understand the process here. So when you have a law passed, the law may say, Illinois State Police has to do such, but it doesn't specifically spell out everything that they have to do to fulfill that obligation. Administrative rules, that's where it comes in. So you have JCAR that's supposed to look over these administrative rules that are promulgated by agencies. They file those. The rules become in effect. And then JCAR reviews those. They don't approve, but they can block rules. Same goes with emergency rules. So the governor's mask mandate in schools apparently was done February 14th. He issued a new emergency order for masks in schools on Monday, where ultimately that rule was brought up before JCAR's meeting yesterday, and they voted with Democrats joining Republicans to block that mask mandate. Effectively, what that means is that it's not in place. There's no mask mandate in place right now for schools. So schools can govern themselves accordingly, according to what the Sangamon County judge had to say. Now, what happens next here, we'll get a little bit more insight later on this morning. We'll talk with Attorney Thomas DeVore. He is going to have to be filing something with the appellate court, the 4th District Appellate Court, where the governor has filed an appeal to the Sangamon County Circuit Court's temporary restraining order blocking mask mandates. So that appeal process is still ongoing. We'll hear from Attorney DeVore what he anticipates how that process will play out. But you've also got the Chicago Public Schools, Libertyville Public Schools looking to have to face the Sangamon County judge on motion of contempt that DeVore filed because DeVore claims that those school districts are still punishing and excluding students for not wearing masks. But it wasn't just schools where we saw the mask issue arise yesterday. We also saw the issue arise during the House session. So the House coming into session for the first time since early January. Of course, they weren't in session for reasons concerning COVID. They didn't want to spread it early in January, so they canceled a bunch of days. But then they also canceled some days in February because of the huge snowstorm we got. So we'll see ultimately what happens there with the snowstorm we've got coming Thursday. And if they're going to cancel Thursday's session, we'll keep you posted on that. But lawmakers coming into session for the first time in quite some time yesterday, and some kerfuffle over mask policies inside the House. Here's how that played out yesterday. You'll hear from State Representative Natalie Manley in the Speaker's chair, State Representative Blaine Wilhauer from Beecher City, a Republican, also State Representative C.D. Davidsmeyer from Jacksonville, and you'll hear from State Representative Lakeisha Collins from Chicago, a Democrat. And it all concerns the mask mandate that is by rule in the Illinois House. And go.
Remember to wear a face covering that covers both your nose and mouth. Face covering should remain on while speaking on the microphone at your desk. Again, face covering should remain on while speaking on the microphone at your desk. To help reduce the spread of COVID-19, we ask that members refrain as much as possible from eating or drinking on the House floor and refrain from congregating in groups. We ask that all members take these directives seriously to help keep fellow members and staff safe. Again, please remember to wear face coverings, including while speaking on the microphone, as pursuant to House Rule 51.5. Thank you. Representative Willar, I could read 51.5 again for you if you'd like me to.
That won't be necessary, Madam Speaker, so long as school districts continue to defy the court and force unwanted and
Mr.
unnecessary
Willar, you've
suffering
not
at the
been
faces of children
recognized.
in school.
This is not something that I wanted to talk about on the House floor today, but I think it's important to talk about masks and how the science of masks has changed based on the need of the House floor. The last 2 days of session, the end of last session, we changed the rules to allow people to speak on the microphone without a mask because it was so hard to hear people on the House floor. And now, because we're at the beginning of a legislative session, the science now all of a sudden tells us that we have to wear it. Are we following the science or are we not following the science? I don't know if you have to ask the clerk or who you have to ask.
I'm following the rule.
And let me just say...
We're following the rule, Representative.
Okay. And many of my friends on the other side of the aisle, and I'm not going to call it names, recently at a big fundraiser for a big supporter of your side of the aisle, spent a nice evening walking around taking pictures with masks off. So I think that it's a little disingenuous to say that we have to do it while we're here on the House floor, but you don't have to do it when you're in a big group, many of you all together at the same time. So let's actually get back to real science. Thank you.
I would say this. I have a 8-year-old son at home who has asthma, and I listen to the science. And I make sure that I take every necessary precaution to protect my son. In the Black community, there are people still dying, still in the hospitals, which our hospital workers are overwhelmed because folks refuse to, what you all are saying on the other side of the aisle, is follow the science. Right now, we have a rule in the chamber, and we see that there are members on the other side of the aisle who are not following those rules. So what do we do about those members who refuse to follow these rules? Because it is putting people like me, who look like me, in danger. And I don't want to go back home and give something to my son. So I get what they're trying to say, which is, to me, is a political circus. But I want to be clear. I do have someone at home that I want to protect. And whether you care about my child or not, I ask that you put on your mask while we're in this closed space. If not, do exactly what we need to do to remove these people from the chamber. Thank you.
So again,
Thank you,
that was
Representative.
some of the debate on the House floor. Very short session yesterday. They just gavelled in and gavelled out. But obviously, the issue of mask rules in the Illinois House is going to continue, I think, as you have the protest from some House Republicans saying that they're not going to wear masks if school districts continue to violate the court's order prohibiting them from forcing masks onto people. They called it a mask theater and said it's gone on long enough. But then later on in the day, it was announced through Jay Carr that they blocked the governor's mask rule for schools. We'll see what the governor has to say. He's going to be here in Springfield a little bit later on at Lincoln Land Community College promoting some of his college spending that he has proposed in his budget. But obviously, this issue of masks in schools is going to be taking some precedent in questions members of the media will have for the governor. So we'll bring that to you. Up next, we'll hear from somebody who wants to take the governor on in November. Stay tuned. We'll have Gary Rabine joining us here on the WMAY Morning News Feed. I'm Greg Bishop at 6:32.